James, so great to meet you at the Williams Fan Zone here with so many of these beautiful heritage cars. And the Milkshake Girls would love to learn more about the history of all of this. So why don't we first start with this one over here?
Yeah, so first of all of the cars begin with FW at Williams. That's Frank Williams, his initials. He founded the team. So all of the cars begin with the acronym FW. This is the FW07B. So this car is from the 80s. It won 2 constructors titles and a driver's title. Alan Jones drove it and won the title in 1980. So yeah, pretty proud of this one.
I did not know that forest green, was part of the Williams racing livery. Blue is what we know Williams for. So when did it make that transition?
Well, there have been loads of colors over the years. I mean, there was a very iconic yellow and blue livery car. In fact, you could see it there in Lego version.
Okay.
Over there.
Yeah.
That Nigel Mansell drove. So yes, blue has been the color for a long time, but yeah, there have also been a lot of other liveries over the years.
I know that this particular era was when the concept of ground effects started to come into play. Can you explain what ground effects means to the average person?
Sure. So ground effects is basically about getting the car as close to the ground as possible and sucking it down into the ground, using the airflow to just push it down into the ground as much as possible, create that downforce and ultimately a quicker car.
And these cars didn't have power steering at the time. And so how challenging physically would it have been to drive one of these compared to the current Williams car?
Oh, it'd be hugely challenging. I mean, also just look how exposed you are in the cockpit, right? Like there's a lot of you on show. If you compare it to the modern day cars, it's completely different. You do well to ask an F2 or an F3 driver that, right? Because they don't have power steering either. So you have to get that muscle, that strength in your forearms because, these are completely different beasts to the modern day F1 car for sure.
All right, James, so tell us about this car over here.
So this next one we have here is the FW17. And this car drove for us in 1995. It won 5 Grand Prix. We had Damon Hill at the wheel and David Coulthard, who was just promoted that season from a junior role. So yeah, it's another car we're very proud of, another very successful car. It was the precursor to a championship-winning 96 car.
I also understand that this is the first car that Adrian Newey designed for Williams as well. What would you say about his design process that was unique? And are there certain elements of this car that's like classic Newey?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason Adrian Newey was such a man in demand not so long ago. The guy is a genius. And, his process is not that typical. He always draws his designs on paper. He's not that kind of digital in that respect. But the guy can see airflow. I mean, the way he interprets aerodynamics is not like a mere mortal. And, you would have seen it in these cars in the 90s. As I say, this car was very successful for us. The next car that he did in 96 won a championship. So, there's something about his gifts that I can't even articulate.
That's fascinating. It's like he's a literal architect doing drawings instead of using digital. So one of the elements of the cars in the 90s were that they were naturally aspirated. For those that don't understand what that means, other than it sounding insane and probably getting hearing damage, what does that actually mean? How would you describe it?
So a naturally aspirated engine basically means that the engine just relies on normal atmospheric pressure to bring in its air effectively. It's not using a turbocharger to suck in air. It's using normal atmospheric conditions. And it basically means it breathes like we breathe.
Well, I know there's a lot of talk that they might bring that back. And for the average fan, we just love how it sounds. So we hope that comes to fruition at some point. I love the 90s vintage vibes, especially the old sponsors at the time.
Sure.
So great. Why don't we move on to the current generation cars?
Let's do it.
So one visibly noticeable difference of the size of this car compared to those other cars. It looks almost 1.5 times the size. What can you tell us about the current Williams car?
Sure. Well, yeah, as I said, this is the FW47. The first thing you notice is the size. These cars have got bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. They are getting a bit smaller next year, but not by much. One thing that we're particularly proud of about this year's car is the number of logos on it. If you only have to rewind 5 years or so, and our car is not quite as adorned in partner logos, we're very proud of all the partners we brought on. They all bought into our success as a team. As you've seen this season, we're on the up, and hopefully they can see that as well. As for the specifics of this car, I believe under the side pod here, that kind of cutaway element there, that's fairly unique to Mercedes-powered cars.
Well, as it relates to the sponsors, I thought that whoever thought of the battery for the Duracell is incredible. What a genius marketing approach.
I like to think it's like to say, it's the best on the grids.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of that. But we also do a lot of other things with our partners. We've had some rear wing takeovers from Kraken. We've had full livery takeovers with Golf. So we get pretty imaginative about how we do our car. We like to think that's one of our strong suits at Williams. So yeah, we're trying to push boundaries in that regard.
So Williams is doing great this year, leading the midfield. What elements of the car do you believe has gotten them to that spot? Or is it the leadership of James? Is it Carlos and Alex working better together? What would you say that is?
I think it's a combination of all of the above and a lot of other things. We've got 1,000 people working in more than 1,000 people working in the factory back at Grove to make this car quicker. What I would say is that I think over the last 2 or 3 years, cars become a lot more consistent. It used to do very well in very specific conditions, very well at high speed tracks, but not so well at low speed. What we've done with this car, I'd say, is make it more consistent, more balanced, so that it is competitive everywhere. And I think that's what we're seeing more or less this year. We're very pleased with how it's going.
So obviously we're in Silverstone. What are the team's goals this weekend? And is a podium possible for Williams?
I'm going to divert to what James Vowles says on this. As I say, he comes to the fan zone and I speak to him a fair amount. He's been asked this exact question. And he said so far that if we get a podium this year, it will probably be because of the misfortune of someone else. That's fine. We'll still take it. But what he's working towards and what everyone in the team is working towards is a podium that's ours to win, if you see what I mean. A podium that we win on our own terms by being one of the 3 quickest cars on the day. So in answer to your question, yes, I think a podium is possible, but what we're really working towards is the next 3 years and beyond, regularly competing at the front.
Well, that sounds like you're managing expectations, but we will be so happy when we see that happen. Maybe a word on the 2026 car. I keep hearing a lot of teams say that the 2026 power and regulations are the toughest from a technical innovation standpoint. What is it specifically that's so tough about 2026? And how can you pull from this generation of car and also your previous ones to help you in developing next year?
Well, I think it's just such a big reset. Formula One goes through resets very often. We saw it in 2022 when the current generation of cars hit the grids. But this is such a big one. We're losing the ground effect from the cars. The cars themselves are getting shorter, slightly narrower. And that just creates a lot of unknowns, basically. So in terms of being able to take things away from the current generation of cars, yeah, there will be some things, but certainly not the same as the evolution from 24 to 25.
Right.
And so it is a bit of a lottery. And that's why you see so many teams pooling resources into next year and not this.
Well, for the fans, we love seeing change so that it mixes up the grid and becomes more competitive. So we can't wait to see how you guys do this weekend and also the rest of the year.
Very excited. Thanks for having me.